All right, on this episode of Bowks Talking Bouts, very excited to talk to an individual who's one of the more revered, respected MMA fighters of the last 20 some odd years, but donning that singlet once again at RAF 6 and does so on February 28th. A very intriguing matchup set to go down against Keelon, Jimison, and great having Clay Guida on the program ahead of RAF 6. How are you doing, man?
Dylan, I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for the awesome intro. I really appreciate that. And yeah, it's hard to believe, man. You said, yeah, 20 years, man, or 20 plus years. It doesn't seem that long. It goes by quick. And yeah, it's pretty cool to be able to kind of, like I say, my career has kind of come full circle. We started wrestling at a young age. Then I wrestled in college, then transitioned to MMA. And, for some of those that know or don't know, we kind of hung up the gloves, in 2025, and now we picked up our wrestling shoes again here in 2026, or at the end of 2025, and heading into our second REF event coming Saturday night live from Tempe, Arizona. Man, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, well, that's interesting to get some clarification on that too, because I think some people were like a little unsure if there was like that return plan to MMA or if there was like some discussions going on behind the scenes or whatever. So you're saying you're formally hanging up the gloves and it's about the wrestling singlet now and kind of like bringing it full circle, as you said.
Sure, I'm not completely against having another fight. Just it probably wouldn't be under the UFC banner, unfortunately. Loved competing for them. It was amazing. But you know how it is. You got to fight your way back in there as well. You know what I mean? To get back under contract with them, which is deservedly so, and that's how it should be. But yeah, if there was a fight that made sense, against a formidable opponent, and timing wise, yeah, I'm not definitely not against it. But in the meantime, we've been having a lot of fun getting back to our wrestling roots, and yeah, being back in the wrestling gym, man, it's been awesome.
Yeah, because whenever I've heard you do like MMA centric interviews throughout the years, like you always really tout like the wrestling base and the foundation, and now multiple contests under that RAF banner as you encroach into this February 28th contest here later on in the week. So just really cool to see and everything like that. I think it just really also speaks to the, I guess, professional opportunities that are now out there for amateur wrestlers. Because I feel like the rhetoric for a while used to be like, oh, you have a great amateur wrestling base, go into MMA, which like obviously that's a path, but good that you can just continue the pure wrestling game and have that option available if you want to pursue that.
Absolutely. And to me, that's the bigger picture in this for these young up and comers for the sport of wrestling for men and women. It gives them another avenue because here's the deal. Not everybody wants to go, get in a cage and get punched and kicked in the head to make a living, to have fun for whatever. And not everybody wants to go into professional wrestling and go jump off of, 4 foot, top rope and get landed on or land on someone that's 250 or 300 pounds, a giant athlete. So that's not for everybody. And on the same, you know, token too, not everyone's going to be an Olympian, or be an Olympic gold medalist or medalist and be able to maybe make a living off of, their name, their endorsements, their performance and things like that too. So, RAF has really, been that avenue, been that platform for, athletes, like myself and other up and coming wrestlers or other, you know, established wrestlers that want to, still compete professionally, but not at the, not in a certain arena. So this gives them, it gives them that arena, to live out their childhood dreams and say, hey, I'm a professional wrestler.
And it seems like very interwoven in, I guess, your broader journey because I was seeing like back in like the UFC days, there was like a fight gym YouTube video of yourself and Izzy Martinez, and he was living with you in an RV on the res per his wording and stuff like that. So it seems like there's some, I guess, tie-in elements here.
Absolutely, man. For sure. We actually just got back from the Illinois individual high school state tournament over the weekend in Champaign, Illinois, at University of Illinois. And yeah, I coached the shirt you see I'm wearing at Immaculate Conception College Prep in a suburb of Chicago in Elmhurst. So I've been, on the staff there for a couple of years now. And it's just great to see these young men go out there and work their butts off and really get to compete on a high level. Illinois is one of the top 5 or 10 states, arguably in the United States in wrestling, just super competitive. And it was a great individual tournament for our team. We had 5 in the finals and we had 4 individual champions. So it speaks volumes about the program, about the coaching staff. And I'm blessed to be just a small part of it. So, but yeah, Coach Izzy has been a close friend of mine and a wrestling coach for 20 years, man. And it's just great to be on the journey with him, and then also see him do such great things in RAF and really bring the sport of wrestling to the forefront, because it's always been huge in his life and his family's life, and to see the magnitude of the influence he's had on not just Illinois, not just the country, the United States, but it's going global around the world. RAF is going to be in homes everywhere before you know it, and people are going to be packing arenas all over, and it's pretty special to see someone with that much passion, like Izzy Martinez, just fulfill his dreams, and really see the sport come to get the recognition that it deserves.
And it seems like you're in a cool spot too, where you're, I guess, like signal boosting and also like mentoring some of these younger wrestlers, but also still driving forward with your own competitive pursuits and stuff like that. It just seems like you're in a really great pocket right now. And like this RAF opportunity came about at like a really great time for you. Like it seems like you're really grabbing the bull by the horns, to kind of, I guess, use that sort of language.
Yeah, for sure. You nailed it, man. I think, like people say, timing is everything. I think it kind of just worked well how we transitioned, from MMA back into wrestling. And, being that I'm able to, coach some of these stud athletes, these national level ranked, folk style and freestyle athletes, I get to train with them daily and, help coach them as well. And, in the wrestling room and on the mats as well. So we kind of get the best of both worlds. I get to, see these kids, that have aspirations to be world champions, on and off the mat. And, we hold them to a very high standard in school as well, that, they have to get the grade before you can actually tie up the wrestling shoes and get on the mats to compete in front of your school, or, in front of the state as well.
Yeah, and I wasn't even intending to ask this necessarily, but just all the things we've kind of like touched on so far. Like, I think there's a certain sentiment from many who are like in the wrestling space, but then also within MMA, who really tout Gable Stevenson's ability to become a UFC champion in pretty short order after, I mean, he isn't signed to the UFC now, but speaking to the idea of if he does, he could have a quick trajectory to that. Like, what are your thoughts on Gable Steveson and his, I guess, MMA journey and whatnot? Like, do you see that similar kind of like, I guess, capacity to achieve X, Y, and Z that other people are seemingly seeing?
Most definitely. Gable Steveson is a phenom. The guy is a workhorse. He has done everything in wrestling that you can do from a young age, being just over the border, in Indiana, winning the state titles, in youth wrestling, to high school, up in Minnesota, to the NCAA level, as I want to say, maybe a three-time NCAA champ, a world champ, and an Olympic, won Olympic gold. And so we got to see him win some NCAA titles. I was there last year, arguably in maybe the biggest upset in NCAA history, when he came up short against Wyatt Hendrickson. Was a phenomenal match. I got to enjoy that with my dad and my brother. And NCAA is it's something we go to every year. But you see an athlete like him that takes a liking to something, and you better watch out. I mean, the sky is the limit, and he is learning at a rapid rate. I know John Jones very well. We trained together at Jackson's for years, a friend of mine, teammate of mine for years, and to see him taking somewhat of a coaching role, if you will, a trainer role, a teammate role, a mentor role in Gable Steveson. I love it. You couldn't have a better individual, to help him, fulfill his MMA dreams. And man, I look at those last three fights of his, which a lot of people saw. I know there was one over the weekend, I believe, too. He's finishing these guys almost, just as soon as the fight starts. There's always going to be haters. There's always going to be people, that are, critics in anything, especially in professional sports. Uh, this guy is going to achieve everything that he wants to. I think it's completely up to him. And like you said, I see a fast trajectory. In my eyes, I think realistically, if you see how the UFC is lately, here's the deal. I'll use myself as an example. I wouldn't say we got a late start because I got into the UFC. I think I was 25 or maybe 24 in the UFC, but I also had 25 fights before I got in the UFC. I think I had 21 or 22 wins and a few losses before I got into the UFC. Now you see guys that are having 3, 4, 5 wins that are getting into the UFC. Excuse me. Maybe because of the Contender Series, maybe because of the Ultimate Fighter, maybe because they just have great representation. Boom, they're doing things in other organizations and they're getting the fast track to the UFC. My brother and I, we didn't know any better back then. It was fight, fight, fight as often as we can. I think there was one year in 2004 or five, I might have had. I think 2005, I had like 11 or 13 fights or something in one year. I can't remember, but it was just one of those. My brother and I mindset was fast track our way to the big show, to the UFC. Now there's different avenues with representation, with social media, with content, this, that, the other. There's ways to get there. Not to mention the level of MMA, the competition level has grown immensely. But back to your point, Gable Steveson will be in the UFC. I think if not by the end of this year, early 2027, and he will be ready for whoever they put in front of him, and he will dominate, man. So I would like to see him get a couple more, just because there's nothing better than really being truly prepared to step into that octagon and under those bright lights. And he's been in it before on the world level, on the Olympic level. He's done it all. But I really want to see him, um, achieve that, and not to be selfish, but to have a badass wrestler, or to have arguably one of the best wrestlers in there representing wrestling on the MMA level.
Yeah, and I was just checking your Tapology actually, and you had to run in 2005, to your point, like a double digit amount of fights, and some of them even like a few weeks apart. So yeah, definitely quite the strength of schedule, and definitely a different, I guess, paradigm in the sport nowadays a little bit.
For sure. Yeah. It was one of those things that back in the day. And you got to think people were doing this long before my brother and I too. You know what I mean? You got the old school guys. I was talking with this guy Phil Johns, who I saw downstate this past year. If you look up his record, if you have your the internet available, look him up. Phil Johns fought everybody. I saw him at the state tournament. He was going through a laundry list of people that he fought, and it's hard to believe he's shorter than me. I want to say I'm barely five. I used to be 5'7". I might be 5'6" now. I put the picture of him and I the other. He might be 5'3" or 5'4", and this is when there was open weight classes. He wrestled, or I think he might have fought. Who the heck was it? I grappled him in a jiu-jitsu match. Oh my, Babalu, Sobral, Renato Babalu. I think he fought him. I mean, he fought a laundry list of guys that were, in all different weight classes. He fought a guy, he told me, I think was 270 pounds, and he was only 155 pounds. So he's fighting these guys all over different. And then a lot of these guys got into the UFC. I think Phil Johns only had one UFC fight. It might have been UFC 4, UFC 8, but he just, he fought all these guys and he fought in Shuto. He fought in Hook and Shoot, which was down in, promotion in Southern Indiana. He fought the Extreme Challenges. He fought for Monty Cox. I mean, but it's so crazy to see all those guys back then, you know what I mean? That fought all over just to get a crack at the UFC.
It's interesting, rather, you mentioned Shudo, because I was seeing that was part of your broader journey in combat sports. And I was kind of wondering, I was like, I wonder if like Rizin has put out any feelers to Clay Guida. I feel like that would be a kind of dynamic that would really make a world of sense. Like I could see that being something that would have some synchronicity if you did want to, do more MMA, like you were talking about before, if the opportunity's right, etc.
It has definitely crossed my mind. I had, that Rise or Shuto is the smaller. I kind of call it almost the little guys, or maybe the feeder program to Pride at the time, because heck, Taka Norigomi, one of my favorites and one of my former opponents. He was a champ of Shuto. Kawajiri, one of my loved watching him fight. Former opponent. He was I think he won the belt there for a little while. I want to say maybe Kaol Uno. So many of those badass little dudes, fought there and then went to Pride. But yeah, Rizin or Rising, man, it would be. That's always been a dream of mine. I wanted to fight in Pride. It merged with UFC, never got that chance to. So I fought at the Tokyo Dome Hotel. Very, very cool venue, man. Probably 3,000 people there, but it was in a really cool just arena gymnasium, very traditional martial arts or mixed martial arts introduction. They walked us down to face off our opponent before the fight. It was really cool. We had our uniforms. I remember we would be up on the stage. I had all white. I still have my Cejudo outfit. Um, Warm-ups in my house back home in Florida. Really cool. We would go down and you go out to the center of the ring under the lights, shake your opponent's hand. With it was like basically 5-on-5. And Cole Miller, who fought in the UFC for quite some time, Ultimate Fighter veteran, he was also on that card. We were the only Americans on it out of 10 fighters, maybe more. We were the only two Americans, and we fought obviously Japanese guys. And he had a great fight. I got my butt kicked quick. He had fight of the night. So that was just such a really cool thing. It would have been awesome to fight in Pride, but also it'd be really cool to fight in Rizin as well. Is that at the Saitama Superdome, or do they do some of the fights there, or
Yeah, they
is
do.
that
Yeah.
one? Okay, yeah, that would be one I would definitely jump at. Had the, if the fight made sense, that would be bucket list stuff, man. To say I topped off my career fighting at, a place that I've always wanted to compete at.
And you kind of touched on it in a bit of like a cursory sort of way, just like the depth of opponents you've fought and just like the strong resume you have. I mean, so many people still doing such incredible things in the sport. I mean, Charles Oliveira does kind of stand out in that context too. And he has that Max Holloway rematch coming up kind of soon for the BMF title. Did you have any particular thoughts on that one? It seems like a big throwdown there.
Man, you talk about two of my favorite guys to ever grace the octagon. Two guys, if you saw them walking down the road, didn't know anything about sports, didn't know anything about mixed martial arts, probably wouldn't assume that those guys are world champs, former world champs, two of the most dominant, badass dudes in the UFC of all time. I'll put those guys instant Hall of Famers, guaranteed, first ballot. The day they retire, boom, they should, they should be inducted immediately after. Two guys, yeah, like I said, very unassuming, that don't really look like fighters. You know what I mean? And when you see them go out there, they are every bit of what you want to see in a champion, what you want to see in a fighter, someone that represents your country, someone that represents the sport very, very well. I am so pumped about that event. That fight's going to be balls to the wall. Two highly skilled athletes that haven't slowed down in their career. They've done nothing but improve. It's unreal. I remember there was, that time when Oliveira was going back and forth between 45 and 55 when he was the youngest. I think at one point he might have been the youngest UFC fighter a long time ago. I think he came in when he was 18 or 19 or 20 or something like that. He was, had a lot of hype around him, and then people were like, oh, blah, 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 this and that. But then he got back on his horse at 155. And yeah, unfortunately, he beat me about 5 miles from here in Chicago. And at the house that Michael Jordan built. I fought him at the United Center in front of a home crowd. And safe to say, it didn't go very well, didn't go as planned. But that was the first fight of his trajectory when he went on what I call one of the most remarkable lightweight runs or UFC runs of all time. I think he won like maybe 8 or 10 straight fights in that run to, having that title, defending that belt, for quite some time. So he's incredible. The guy just keeps getting better, keeps putting top tier athletes away. Max Holloway, on the other hand, this guy just continues to not surprise me. He continues to impress me each performance in and out. It's just unreal. The guy, he beats wrestlers, he beats jiu-jitsu guys, he beats strikers, he beats boxers, and he beats them with authority. He literally takes these guys' will from them. He makes these guys quit in there. He points to the rest. He points to his opponent. He points to the mat. He puts his hands up, and he backs it up. He is pure entertainment. The guy is he doesn't look like he could hurt a fly. You know what I mean? If you see him, but when he gets in there, that dude is all business. Just an absolute savage. So this fight, it's got all the makings of fight of the year, fight of the night for sure. And you get to see two legends go at it for the BMF belt, and who more deserving than these guys. So yeah, as you can tell, I'm a little bit excited about this matchup.
Yeah, no, understandably so. And I mean, I love that dynamic too. Like, you've authored so many incredible, literally Hall of Fame inducted fights in your career, but you still have such an enthusiasm for the sport. I really love to see that.
Thank you, man. Yeah, these are guys that, like I said, I was there when my teammate Andre Feely fought Max Holloway, and I don't know if it might have been Holloway's debut or no. He might have had a couple fights, but this was back in 2013 in Baltimore, Maryland, when John Jones and Glover Teixeira were in the main event. And I remember seeing Andre Feely in the locker room, and that was his debut for sure. But he had a very close fight with Max Holloway, and then Holloway just went on a tear after that. And to see him 13, 14 years later, almost still in the sport, still dominating, it's remarkable. That speaks volumes to him, to his camp, to his training partners, to his coaching. And yeah, I'm pumped for that fight, man.
And you mentioned Andre Feely. I would imagine that would have taken place at a similar time to when you were working with like Team Alpha Male a fair bit. And in some of those interviews, I've heard you shout out Mike Malott. This was like in an interview that I'd heard you did with Ariel Helwani circa like 4 years ago. I guess I'd bring that up to get your thoughts on that Mike Malott versus Gilbert Burns fight
Gilbert
at UFC
Burns.
Winnipeg. Yeah.
Yeah, that's gonna be a great one. And Mikey, proper Mike Malott, man. One of my favorites. I don't know how that guy, I don't know a lot of people know his backstory. Um, he's a 170 pounder now. He fought at 55 for a while. The dude used to fight at 145 for a little bit too. He's an absolute giant. When I met him at the gym at Team Alpha Male, I was like, Uriah, is this guy, is he like one of the only 185 pounder, the only middleweight you guys got? He's like, Guida, that dude fights at lightweight. I'm like, oh boy. I'm like, I might have to go down to 135. And he just destroys guys, man, in the gym. He's so technical. He's a great trainer, a great training partner. He teaches classes while he's there. Just breaks everything down so very well. Just very well spoken. Great leader. Um, and it's just awesome to see him because there was a time he was almost, yeah, he was out of the, I'm sorry, before he was you're not in, before he was in the UFC, he almost hung up the gloves for mixed martial arts. There was a time because he was banged up, he was having a hard time making 155. And I told him, and I'm sure other people did too, man, enough of the cutting weight. Go explore 170. You're huge. Put some weight, continue to put weight on, stay strong, focus more on your skills instead of the weight cut all the time and the negative parts of the sport. Do what it motivates you, do what you like, have fun at this. And he won one fight, maybe two at that CFFC at the out in Philly. He knocked a dude out, and I think a couple months later he was in the UFC, and he went on maybe a 3 to 5 fight win streak. He dropped one, and now he's on a win streak again. What's his record now in the UFC? Is he 5 or 6-1, or maybe 6-2 or something? I think
Something like that. Yeah. I think he's only lost
yep.
to like Neil Magny, maybe like one other
Right.
in there. But
Yep.
yeah, great run.
Yeah, he's been doing great, and he's got a newfound motivation in the UFC, and it's great to see that. And I'm glad that him and Gilbert Burns, another friend of mine, are going to clash. And that's the main event, correct?
Yeah, and interestingly enough, and I guess this has localized importance to me as like a Canadian observer of the
First
sport, but
Canadian,
in several years, yeah. I think since June 2020, I believe Felicia Spencer was
yeah,
the
first
last
Canadian event
Canadian.
was it since GSP?
Uh,
Yeah, yep.
yeah, it's been a bit. Yeah.
It's pretty amazing, man. So, um, yeah, yep. So very well deserved for both of those guys, and it's cool to see Gilbert Burns, another guy that just continues to fight the top guys. He's always right there. From in my eyes, he's 1 or 2 fights away from, or 1 or 2 wins away from being right back in the top five, and always in title contention. Always entertaining. He's got fighter spirit, and the guy just leaves it all out there every time. So that's going to be a matchup that everyone needs to check out.
Yeah, I feel like he's one of those guys who's like always in the mix for sure. So definitely, love to see that kind of dynamic and everything like that. But yeah, you have such a, deep resume and stuff like that, man. It's really cool to kind of skim through and brings a lot of great memories to me as like an MMA fan. But like Nate Diaz obviously stands out as like a big win on your ledger. And it seems like he's always involved in different fight conversations, like Jorge Masvidal trilogy, McGregor trilogy. Like, do you see him making a UFC return this calendar year? It seems like there's some teasing and some discourse going on.
Man, so him and Masvidal have fought twice.
Yeah, well, one was under boxing rules. I guess this was like
Yeah, I
2024
was gonna
maybe, but yeah, yeah.
correct. Yeah, that's right. They boxed each other. Yeah, I was saying, but thought they only did MMA once. And yeah, Jorge Masvidal just hammered him. Um, excuse me. I would be, you know, today's day and age. No, I wouldn't be surprised to see him, come back and do one more fight. In the UFC. Same thing can be said for McGregor to do one more. You know what I mean? I think that would really fulfill those guys, maybe close a chapter on their career. You know what I mean? Not fulfill, because those guys have done everything. Nate just short of, like myself, just short of coming up with UFC gold. But Nate's done everything else. He's fought for the title a couple times now. He's fought everybody. Hall of Famer as well, I would imagine. But yeah, I think to some closure for the fans for both of those guys. I would love to see them either run it back one more time. Let's see those guys beat each other up one more time, for the lovers, for the haters, for the fans, whatever it is. Or see those guys fight somebody else for one more fight, because there's always going to be that question where they're still able-bodied, where they're still training, hopefully, where they're still involved in the sport. Man, one more fight would be awesome. And as a fan, I love watching those guys fight. Would I like to fight both of them? Absolutely. I'll fight them both in the same night if I had the chance to, man. That would be amazing. But as a fan, yeah, those guys are top tier entertainment all the time. And I would tune into both of them to see them fight each other, or to see them fight opposite or other opponents as well.
No, for sure, man. And I could ask you questions all day. I actually just noticed your text about the other meeting. So my apologies in a big regard to that. I do want to be mindful of your time, though, man. An enthusiastic
Okay.
MMA fan coming out in me for sure. But, figured I'd give you the floor if there was anything you maybe wanted to add as a parting thought as we're wrapping up here, man.
Man, thank you so much, Dylan, for all the awesome questions, the amazing interview. I appreciate you guys covering RAF, covering this great sport of wrestling. I wouldn't be doing this interview right now. We wouldn't have met before. I wouldn't have been involved in mixed martial arts or the UFC without the sport of wrestling. So yeah, very super grateful for the sport, what it's done for myself, my family, and just blessed to still be able to compete. And all of our fans, please tune in Saturday night. I'm kicking off the show. Muggsy and I are going to put on the show on the elevated REF mat. It's going to be awesome. And all the best to the IC wrestlers this weekend in the dual team state in Bloomington, Illinois. It's going to be great. And like I always say, wrestling is life. We'll see you guys on the mats.
The carpenter abides and the dude abides.
The dude abides. Yeah, I love
Yeah,
it. Lebowski.
yeah. No, I love that, man. Great getting to talk to you, though. Definitely like a bucket list kind of interview for sure. Hopefully, the first of many chats. I mean, this RAF journey seems like it's going to be a cool one for you. So thanks again for the time, and looking forward to this contest. And also have a good rest of your day, Clay.
Absolutely, Dylan. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate it. Have a wonderful one. Take care. Have a great day.